What do you think? Too much? Halloween is a time-honored tradition on this show. It doesn't matter if I'm late or on time because I got a hat, I got silly decorations. I just love this time of year. And with all 5 of those Dracula point and clicks out the way, I'm finally free to take my Halloween adventures somewhere new. It's still going to be a spooky point and click of course, but I felt like doing something a little bit more psychological. This one's going to get a little strange. Let's talk about Sanitarium.
Sanitarium is a psychological horror adventure game released in 1998 and is probably the most well-known work of developer Dreamforge Intertainment, whose other works include some D&D and Warhammer games as well as a 101 Dalmatians point and click.
If we don't find a way out of here soon, we're gonna end up like this.
Tell me about it.
Variety is the spice of life, I suppose, but maybe not for Dreamforge, because they went under in 2001.
Either way, Sanitarium itself has developed somewhat of a cult following, even winning Computer Gaming World's 1998 Best Adventure Award in a tie with Grim Fandango of all games.
That's a lot to match up to. Grim Fandango is a huge deal. And I didn't play Sanitarium myself until early this year and discovered what I was missing, because wow, this one is interesting.
Definitely unusual as an adventure game as it opts for an isometric style with pre-rendered 3D models, which was more often seen in the CRPGs of the era, like Fallout or Planescape Torment. Sanitarium puts you in the bandages of this perturbed gentleman here. I wonder what he's worried about.
A lot.
He awakens in a gothic asylum after a car crash, unaware of who he is or why he's there, and what follows is a very bizarre, unsettling journey into strange, off-putting worlds, where you come face to face with a number of horrifying monsters and individuals.
How much of it is real and how much of it is in our mummified protagonist's head? And does Sanitarium deserve the cult following it got? Let's find out.
Sanitarium begins with a man walking to a car, eager to tell someone about a discovery over the phone.
Hon, you're not gonna believe it. I found the answer. All those years, I should have seen it. There's more. I'll tell you when I get home.
The drive quickly turns sour, with the brakes malfunctioning, and it veers off the road and plummets down a cliff.
What the?
A voice tells us we stole his car and took it for a joyride, and the resulting accident is why this guy is covered in bandages.
It's not just for fun.
We've awakened in the tower of an asylum with alarms blaring. It's all a little disorienting, and with this we're introduced to the gameplay, which plays a little bit different to your typical point and click. Rather than just pointing and clicking to move, you instead hold the right mouse and guide the bandage man around. It's a bit strange to get used to, and it kind of feels like you're piloting him, but it works most of the time. You can click on him to view all inventory items as well. It's a pretty streamlined interface overall, no verbs or symbols, and generally you'll examine something before actually interacting with it anyway.
A towel. Might be useful.
And speaking of interactions, there are several people here to talk to.
Oh my god, don't!
Not him though.
Each person in this area has something odd about them. It's a video game asylum after all. Some are dancing, others bash their heads against the wall, though some of them you can converse with. Not that they'll really give you much useful information though.
Lenny, do you know where we are?
This is my room. My bedroom. Do you like it?
Bedroom? No, I mean the building. What's this place we're in? What's it called?
My house.
This isn't your house.
Yes, it is.
They talk about speaking to spirits of the fallen warriors or robot bugs, so it doesn't seem like anyone here has a coherent grasp on reality. Our character doesn't even remember his name or much else for that matter. It seems like we may need to piece things together ourselves in this odd place. This all seems like a strange setting for an asylum as well, doesn't it? Weirdly gothic, more like a church than a medical institution. There are stained glass windows and an angel statue on the top level here. Oh, and the whole place is on fire and about to explode.
Which isn't a gothic thing, but it is a pretty important detail.
There's also this central control room, but it can't be reached without extending the bridge. Luckily, the cable above can be used to zipline over using a towel. And here you go into tape featuring our character being interviewed by Dr. Morgan, who seems to be in charge of the place.
You must have thought you had somewhere important to go when you stole that car.
Oh no.
You did a lot of damage to that face of yours in the crash.
For some reason, watching the tape shorts out the area, opening a safe that contains a strange key. Odd, but okay. Although the only place here with a keyhole is the base of the angel statue. Like, will that open a hidden door or something?
It is so dark. Oh, my home, once bright tower, what has become of you?
Oh, okay. The angel is alive? Or possibly a delusion? Our character is in an asylum after all. Real or imagined, this angel probably just saved us. And now we're somewhere entirely new.
This right here is probably the most well-known chapter of the game, The Innocent Abandoned.
It takes place in the center of a rural American town, which takes advantage of the horror aesthetic that goes along with that. Creepy pumpkin patches, churches, that sort of thing. I love this stuff. Though what's interesting about this town in particular is that you may notice that there aren't any adults present, only children. Children who have unique abnormalities.
Hey, you big dope! Get out of our life!
Come on, Billy. Let's play. You're not supposed to.
Okay.
It's all very eerie, though they won't talk to you until you tell them your name. Luckily, every time someone asks, memories resurface until... Max. Our character's name is Max.
Now that dialogue has opened up with these kids, let's actually talk about the dialogue.
I quite like the dialogue interface for a variety of reasons. First of all, you're given simple topics you can bring up, and ones that you've already asked about are grayed out. It's a little quality of life detail that I always appreciate. Secondly, there's these portraits. They're full of detail, and for this chapter especially, this is paramount, as you can get close-ups on each child to see what they actually look like. I also like how Max has different faces for different emotions too. He can be neutral, shocked, angry. It's neat. Look at his little face. And lastly, I love the little chattering teeth icon. I'm not sure why, but that just brings me joy. The cast of characters you meet here are unique and odd, each with their own little quirks. Despite everything, they're still just normal kids, who say normal kid-type things.
I used to have a goldfish named Max, but my cat ate it. He pooped orange for 2 days.
That's disgusting. Do your parents know you tell stories like that?
Yeah, but they don't say anything. Orange poop, orange poop.
Yeah, that seems about right.
But there is one topic they're prickly about. What happened to everyone else? They all give a creepily similar answer too.
Where are your parents?
They're all in.
Jesse, shut up. He's a grown-up. You know Mother's rule.
What's Mother's rule?
We aren't supposed to talk about our folks. If we do, we'll be put in the patch.
The adults are gone. There is only Mother.
I haven't seen any adults in this town. Where are your parents? Where are all of the adults?
Sorry, Max, but Mother won't let us talk about that.
The children speak of this mother with a mixture of reverence and fear. One child even disobeyed by talking about the missing parents and was put in the pumpkin patch to have her eyes pecked out.
Oh good, that's nice. Nightmares.
Yeah, Sanitarium is messed up. It's not the kind of horror that aims to outright scare you, rather psychologically jab at you and unsettle you, that sort of thing. And when you read into the background of the town itself, it doesn't shy away from discussing actual serious issues like abuse. Some of the backstories for these characters are somewhat harrowing and sad to read about. There's a dark history to this place, even before the adults went missing, and I'm really keen on this sort of world building through documents.
I've realised partway through filming this that I forgot to put my scarf on, so if you noticed that, good on you. And if you didn't, pulled a sneaky on you, accidentally. I've got it on now.
Something I'm less keen on is how slow the game can be. Gameplay wise, I mean. Max moves at a snail's pace, which can make wandering about feel tiresome. And it's also easy to get caught on things with the guiding style of movement. Your first playthrough where you don't know what you're doing and you're looking around will feel quite sluggish, especially if you're wandering back and forth since it takes so long. Though at the very least, it allows you to take in the atmosphere and listen to the gorgeous soundtrack.
God, I just love that.
It's just dripping with dread and so appropriate for the dark story of this place. So what's the deal with this town? Who is Mother? Well, to find that out, we first need to get through the pumpkin patch. There's a padlock on the gate with 3 numbers. And when I first played this, I put in the combination immediately, as a complete fluke. How, you may ask? Well, the number I put in was 451, and I put it in as a joke during my stream because my friend Nico dared me to.
Do anything with that just yet? 0451. Let's try it. You never know.
The right combination.
It's a good it's only 3, so I'll do 451. Wait, really? Oh my god, Nico!
Time to check out this patch.
It worked! Oh my god! Nico!
For clarity, he didn't know that this was the solution either, so it makes the whole thing pretty amusing.
This number, likely as reference to Fahrenheit 451, is significant for being the first code in a number of games, often in the immersive sim genre. From System Shock to Deus Ex to Dishonored to Prey, it comes up a lot. All have some form of, or twist on, 451 as their first code. And surprisingly, Sanitarium looks like it might have been one of the first games to do it as well, looking at the release dates. Huh, just a funny little thing, I guess. Either way, we must now traverse the pumpkin patch, wielding a scythe for protection. Yes, there is combat in this point and click.
Oh no, I'm getting Harvester flashbacks.
Sanitarium's combat isn't great, obviously, though it's much better than Harvester's. Thank goodness. For one, it actually works.
Oh, we'll get to Harvester someday. I've got a lot to say about that game.
The combat in Sanitarium, while a tad fiddly, is used very sparingly and done in a very forgiving way. If you die, you simply respawn at the beginning of the area. It's a mild annoyance to shuffle back into the battle, but it also doesn't reset the enemy health, so it's fine, I guess. In this case, there are some birds and a jack-o'-lantern scarecrow who stabs you with his pitchfork. Rude. Making your way through the pumpkin patch then gets you to this barn, with green plant-like tentacles bursting from it, and a comet embedded in the side. I wonder what's inside.
Oh my god!
Everybody, say hello to Mother.
As you might have expected, Mother is not human. She is an alien plant creature who came from this comet and witnessed the cruelty that came from the adults in this town. So she killed them, stuffed the bodies in the local school, and adopted the children for herself.
Cheddar preyed upon his own child, making her suffer and die. The entire town turned a blind eye to Cheddar's crimes, and I watched. The people's vicious disregard for Carol's safety was no less a crime than her father's.
What a nice lady.
The reason the children look so strange is because, well, she's slowly mutating them, turning them into plants. And this is something you notice yourself, especially with some of the children in particular.
Her legs are like tree roots.
Mother doesn't kill Max, but she does expel him from the barn. It's clear now. We need to save these children, and the way they talk about Mother now she's awake as well, it's creepy.
I know about Mother. I've seen her. She's not human. Don't you understand what she...
Mother is good. Mother is the way. She protects us from the meat who would harm us. The meat must be killed so that the seedlings can grow. We're all Mother's seedlings.
We have to do something here.
If you inspect the comet, you'll realize it's connected directly to Mother. And if you jam a metal cross into one of the holes, we could pass a current through it. There's a generator nearby, and several items in the area will need to do this. And once it's all hooked up, we can zap Mother and save those kids.
I do love a vegetarian fry-up.
But that completes this little segment. You see, Sanitarium is built in an interesting way, rather unusually for a point and click. It basically has levels. You don't return to any previous area, you just advance to a new small area to explore and solve.
Now this sounds like it could get repetitive, but they find a way to keep it fresh.
Not just yet though, for now we're back in the asylum. Dr. Morgan is here with a bunch of staff and patients. It seems mostly normal. Huh. So was any of that strange town even real? None of the orderlies seem to think so.
What's your theory?
Well, I think that maybe your mind couldn't handle the thought of you abandoning those who needed help, so you constructed a world to hide in, inside your mind, until it was safe to come back. The town represented the tower, the children were the patients, and the missing adults represented the doctors and other authority figures who weren't around to help.
Well, I guess that does make sense. A constructed world to bypass the guilt of leaving the other people in the tower behind, because apparently they all died up there. And now that I think about it, the stained glass windows in the asylum tower depicted a scarecrow and a group of children.
A scarecrow on a stained glass window. Weird. Stained glass window. Looks like some children.
Could the whole town have been a delusion? A lot of what this game asks is whether or not something is inside Max's head or not. Even the asylum itself is casting some doubt. I mean, this gargoyle is moving. We can't even inspect it. It's just something that you can notice.
Let me make a gargoyle friend, damn it!
This area's key puzzles revolve around this record player. There are 4 records you can put in overall, each of which play a strange song that affects people around the area. The first song, which was playing when we arrived, affects this woman.
My name is Vera. I think it sounds nice. I ate my husband with carrots and rice.
Okay, cool. That's nice.
There's also a song that gets this sea captain guy to dance with his fish. There's one that gets this old man ballerina moving.
Your big cotton head looks like it belongs in a big ear.
And my personal favourite, Rockabilly Swing Thing, which gets this guy dancing. He claims to be Elvis.
Are you serious, man? I'm the king.
King of what?
King of rock and roll, man. I'm Elvis.
The Elvis? But I thought you were, well, you know, dead.
No, that was all a hoax, man. The pressure was getting to me. I needed a break.
Hey, he could really be Elvis for all I care. Check out those moves.
It's humbling to be in the presence of a king.
Once again, this is another area full of interesting characters. That's what this game does so well. Each character is unique and memorable and has plenty of weird things to say. It makes it a really entertaining game to play through. The chapter ends with Max needing to reunite this woman with her lover, a gargoyle.
Oh, so she gets to hang out with a gargoyle.
Basically, the water in this pool reflected one of the gargoyles, and she wants that back. And you need to go through a little puzzle redirecting the water. It's not difficult to do. And I think I just stumbled upon the solution through trial and error.
My spirit has been so dry.
Oh, apparently he's a real gargoyle. Maybe. Or maybe not. I don't know.
What is your greatest wish?
It's here that we're given more of Max's backstory. They're told in these FMV vignettes, giving snippets of his life and explaining how he got to where he is. They're doled out in small parts throughout the whole game. There's one in this chapter where you discover Max was a doctor as well, who previously worked with Morgan, the guy in charge of this place. But the backstory goes further just before the end. As a child, Max's sister Sarah became terminally ill, and on her deathbed, she asked him to give her a toy she got from the circus. But alas,
I can't find it.
It was too late.
There's a lot more emotion in Sanitarium than you might expect. Like, this is sad. This is really sad.
Max feels like he failed his sister by not finding that toy. It may seem like something stupid and small, but who doesn't have a moment like this in their lives? A word unsaid, a deed undone? I reckon a lot of you feel like you've got unfinished business with a loved one who passed away. Just wishing you had more time or you had the chance to say a proper goodbye. That kind of emotional trauma isn't easy, and it can eat away at you. I commend Sanitarium for choosing to explore that kind of thing. It's a game you'd expect to just go, ooh, spooky, scary, crazy world, look at that. But it has a stronger emotional core than you might have anticipated. This game has hidden depths to it.
Didn't think I could work in the title, did you?
This is taken a step further because now we are Sarah.
What's happening to me?
And we're at the circus. How fun. I told you to keep things fresh. The change in characters is one of those things that Sanitarium does to catch you off guard. In this case, having a couple of chapters where Max is trapped in the persona of his long-dead sister, with all that entails. Characters begin treating you like a child, and your height is a factor as well, that sort of thing. The circus itself brings pretty much everything you'd expect. Clowns, carnival games, a freak show, the standard affair. What's not so standard is a strange monster plaguing the area again. This time, it's the freak show squid boy, Iggy, who has gone rogue and is eating everyone. Which is probably why there are mutilated corpses in the water. Sarah kinda just brushes past them like they're an inconvenience.
Yuck.
Yeah, someone should clean this up. Terrible service.
Among the missing or dead is the husband of this fire-breathing lady called Inferno, after he went in search of this squid creature and never returned. In fact, the numbers are dwindling on the whole here, and because of a massive flood that ravaged the town, one by one Iggy is picking them off and eating them.
I know the ways of Beelzebub. You can alter your appearance at will. Why, you're probably in league with the watery abomination that's killing us all off one by one.
I do quite like this segment of the game, it's another solid one, and there are plenty of fun circus characters to talk to, including a literal talking werewolf at the freak show, who has to be set free so he can dig up some bones.
If you want to be friendly, release me from this damn cage.
Oh, look at that. We're making a furry friend.
If I let you out, you'll eat me. You said so yourself.
Promise. I promise not to. If you let me out.
We can do that, and he leads us to a pit full of bones. Hell yeah! I love pits full of bones.
Welcome to the Bone Zone.
But something smells bad.
What is it? What's wrong?
Rotten, like death. Let's leave. Have to climb out.
Well, there goes my furry friend. If you're not careful, the Bone Zone will claim you. It's always looking for new volunteers.
At least we now know where Iggy is hiding out. And once we've armed ourselves with some fire-breathing tech, we can jump into the pit and fry another monster.
I'm sensing a theme.
So, yeah, this is another combat segment. I'm glad these are relatively easy, though the hitboxes for breathing fire and Iggy are a little bit hard to read, which means I did die. Oh no. Oh, this is terrible. Am I a bad person if I think this looks hilarious? Still, it only takes 3 well-placed blasts, and Iggy is reduced to fried squid.
I actually don't eat seafood.
And the end of this cave brings us to a basement, not back to the asylum. And we're still Sarah. It turns out that this is the basement of Max's childhood home, which we saw in some earlier cutscenes, though it's strange now. Everything is in this sepia tone, almost a literal depiction of nostalgia, and there are blue ghosts around telling of past events.
Max, come upstairs. There's nothing you could do, son. It's not your fault that you couldn't find it.
This is actually my favourite segment of the game. You get snippets of the lives of not just Max, but his parents, and how Sarah's death affected them too.
Stephen, why do you do this to yourself?
I just miss her, Diane. I miss her a lot.
We all do, honey, but torturing yourself watching old videotapes every night isn't the answer.
It's all super sad, but the soundtrack plays it so perfectly. A mixture of melancholy and reminiscing. The entire soundtrack is just great actually. It ranges from emotional to strange and off-putting. The standouts for me include The Innocent Abandoned, which I highlighted before, but also the entire Circus of Fools section.
It's harder to pinpoint a chapter in this game which doesn't have good music, honestly.
This level has you exploring this mansion, attempting to find closure for Max for the death of his sister, while also being his sister. It's all very dreamlike. The layout of the rooms and the perspective feel a little off, with walls warping and twisting and bleeding occasionally.
Oh my god, the walls are bleeding.
Oh, I love a good bleeding wall. Classic.
Eventually you end up finding the missing doll from all those years ago, hidden in the attic, and a ghost of Max leads you to a ghost of Sarah, and then...
Don't be sad, Max.
I thought I let you down when you needed me most.
God, I can't even find the words for how much I love that. The animation is gorgeous, and the emotions are heartfelt and feel quite authentic. I wouldn't say Sanitarium has the best voice acting, but it pulls off what it wants to achieve really well.
I love you.
I love you too.
This is probably the point where I'd put the spoiler cutoff. Yes, it's pretty early in the game, but from this point there are a lot more strange surprises in store.
So obviously, usual warning of if you care about spoilers, turn back now. And if you don't care, just between you and me, you alright?
The next segment finds us back as Max, next to a skeleton of a young girl holding the clown doll. Is it a metaphor? Most likely, but who knows. It's hard to say what's real and what isn't. Even with the supernatural stuff, you can't be sure if you're in a world where that sort of thing exists or if it's fantasy. Regardless, we find out more about Dr. Morgan in this chapter, and in regards to how he may not be all he seems. A flashback in his office shows that he battled for the approval of his father.
I'll do just fine.
You'll do just fine? Fine. Is that your goal? I thought I taught you better than that. Anyone can do fine. I don't want you to be just like every other student that medical school churns out. Remain focused on what is important, Jacob.
Yes, Father.
Another one comes after solving a puzzle to open this gate, which depicts Max before the accident working with Morgan in a lab. We also discover Morgan has been conducting some less than ideal experiments. This room is coated with gore and open corpses. It's like a twisted Christmas morning.
Gotta say, I'm not a fan.
And some further snooping and word games later, Max discovers that Morgan is up to some experimentation involving children. Children in test tubes. Fun.
My God! Huh?
But alas, Max is caught, knocked out, strapped down, and injected with drugs. Drugs. There's definitely something fishy going on in this asylum. That much is obvious. But first, we're gonna enter a whole new world as Max transforms into Grimwall.
Hold on. What?
Grimwall is a four-armed Cyclops comic book hero, and Max's favourite character as a child. You can see him reading a comic about Grimwall in an earlier cutscene. I'm gonna be honest, I think the Grimwall chapter is a bit dry. As a character, Grimwall just feels a bit flat.
Grimwall? Is that my name? I don't remember much.
Once you get over the excitement of playing as a four-armed Cyclops, you realise he's just not that interesting. Where Max has a more nervous disposition, disturbed by the world around him, Grimwall just somehow feels generic. He's supposed to be this great Cyclopean hero, but because he has amnesia in this chapter, it just leaves him a blank slate. I wish we could see the Grimwall that the NPCs describe.
Every Cyclopean child knows the name of Grimwall. You're the great hero of the War of the One.
I feel like this whole thing should be cool, but it's just kind of, Grimwall just doesn't do it for me. Though he does invent his own spin on swearing that I must admit I'm quite fond of.
Entry denied. Grap. Password. Grap. Password. Grap. Entry denied.
I like grap.
There's some gross, fleshy imagery in this chapter, as it takes place in a hive of robot bugs. Wait, hold on. Haven't I heard that from someone somewhere before?
Martin, think about it. How are some bugs going to destroy the world?
Well, look at them. These aren't normal bugs. These is robots. Little teeny robots.
Well, that's interesting. Either this guy is also a Grimwall reader, or something else is going on here. But it's yet another segment of the game foreshadowed in that first chapter. The puzzles here aren't too bad either. I mean, I quite like the one where you need to match symbols with the dragonfly thing, and then there's a music puzzle, which is different too.
Though I'm not that good at music puzzles, I never have been, and this isn't even the last music puzzle in this game. Please stop. I'm not good at this kind of thing. When it comes to music puzzles, my brain tiny. Tiny brain.
You also might have noticed that the animations look really sped up in some of the close-ups in this game. I think that's just a classic case of the CPU running faster than the game was ever intended to run. But it's only these close-ups affected, so it's not a huge issue. The story here seems to mirror what we saw in the asylum earlier. A respected Cyclops called Gromner, a pretty obvious anagram of Morgan, has been working with the robot bugs and giving them Cyclopean children.
Yes, Father is
And it's kinda messed up, but again, this whole thing with children, it's present in nearly every chapter. Children are under threat and either a monster or Morgan is responsible. Perhaps the monsters represent Morgan. We also get some flashback scenes which contextualize more of the story. One reveals that Max was doing research on a plague that affected the Aztecs? Okay. The other shows that Morgan's lab etiquette was less than ethical.
Serum will travel directly to the neurotransmitters of the brain and without actually harming the monkey, cause it to feel excruciating pain all over its body.
What? That's not an experiment. It's torture! What possible purpose?
When you outrank me in lab years, Max, you can question the methods.
This Morgan guy is shaping up to be a real piece of work, and his Cyclops counterpart Gromner is also found giving a speech to the robot bugs with the Hive Mother. And given the literal fascist imagery, I think Max sees Morgan as literally Hitler.
How evil do you need to be become Bug Hitler?
After you foil Gromner's plot in this chapter, Max finds himself back in reality, or what we assume to be reality, emerging from a locker in a morgue.
Now where am I? Cyclops, bugs, mother. All of these monsters must mean something, but what?
This particular chapter isn't completely noteworthy. You talk to a corpse, find a very cold old man, do a bit of incineration, throw a bust of Morgan at the wall, and talk to a tree.
You know, the usual.
More importantly, once again, are the flashbacks. One details Max, now working for Morgan, having his funding cut.
What the hell are you doing?
Excuse me?
Cutting my research department in half? Pulling most of my funding, despite the fact that my department, my research is coming remarkably close to a cure.
It seems that his sister's death pushed Max into a career researching illnesses, which naturally makes him very passionate about his cause. Though Morgan, he seems more interested in profits. Of course. This all makes you wonder how Max got from here to the asylum though.
And I smell foul play. We better find this Dr. Morgan.
And as it happens, the chapter ends with Max actually catching up to Morgan, who...
Well, Max, I don't know how you found me, but you're too late. I'm leaving now. Leaving you here with the rest of the dead people.
Damn you, Morgan!
Okay, bye then. And the Aztec link is furthered with a number of things scattered around this little office. Still, after solving a puzzle, this happens.
Yes! What the...
Oh.
Max is now Olmec, a warrior made of stone. In real life, the Olmecs were the earliest known Mesoamerican civilization, often remembered for their giant stone head art. In this story, Olmec has been summoned to a village that Quetzalcoatl has murdered. Quetzalcoatl, of course, being another stand-in for Dr. Morgan. This game really kept me wondering what was going on this whole time, and at this point, it seems like you're chasing Morgan through strange worlds. This chapter is kind of another slow one. I don't mind it because Olmec is just hilariously blunt as a character.
Still your tongue, old crone. I asked your station. What is it? Why do you sit here, idle in the village instead of fighting? What kind of coward are you? What do you mean by that, bitter crone? I am Olmec. I fight for the gods themselves.
He's also immensely observant.
Scalding lake of lava. Simple pottery. Big head.
This absolutely cracked me up when I streamed this.
Big head.
It sure is, buddy.
I don't know why that caught me off guard. The Lost Village has you talking to shamans and villagers, saving children from danger, and making contact with the spirits of fallen warriors. And that's another thing that was mentioned in that first chapter. At this point, I'm starting to suspect that the asylum isn't what it cracked up to be. Anyhow, to take on Quetzalcoatl, Olmec needs to acquire his death mask, which is found in a maze beneath the village. Before we get to the maze though, there's yet another flashback, and perhaps the most illuminating one of all. It depicts Max finally making a breakthrough on his research, linking it to his time researching the Aztecs. Excitedly, he gets into his car and, well, the crash we all know happens. Huh. So Max never stole a car. It was always his. So what's the deal with the asylum? Before we get to that, we need to get through this maze. Oh god, this maze. Why do some adventure games feel the need to insert an annoying maze into it?
Nobody likes these. They're never good. They're always the worst. Please stop it. Just stop. Please.
This one has you traversing a bunch of platforms and avoiding pink electricity that teleports you to the start. See, this wouldn't be so bad, but the movement style this game has doesn't gel with this at all. First of all, there's the whole trouble with stairs. If you touch even 1 pixel of a stair zone, you get thrown up or down them. And with these narrow platforms, that can be a bit annoying. Secondly, the slow movement is again an issue here. It makes this whole thing an absolute slog to get through as you're winding through the paths. And third of all, that lightning is kind of finicky to avoid, and it's hard to know where the hitboxes are and the movement is imprecise. This bit in particular is annoying to get past, and when you do, you suddenly find that the floor falls out from beneath you, and you have to go all the way back.
Good. This is good.
This whole thing just doesn't work for me. I'll never understand the constant need for labyrinths in 90s adventure games. I can't name a single one that doesn't drag down the game it's a part of. Anyway, once you clear the maze, you can get the death mask and tackle Quetzalcoatl into a volcano, with this cool transitional cutscene showing how you become Max again. Oh, that's neat. It's this kind of thing that reminds me a bit of games like Franbo, which, now that I think about it, is a little bit similar to this game. Also, I'd love to talk about Franbo someday. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Max finds himself at home with his wife, and his sister is alive?
Oh wait, this is a nightmare, isn't it?
Sarah! You're... No! You're dead!
Yep, looks kinda goofy to be honest. This is only one step above that dude in Dracula 2. But this cutscene also reveals what you might have already expected.
Your doctor tells me that you should have died in the car wreck. I wish things could have worked out differently, Max, but they didn't. You leave me little choice, old friend. Did you honestly expect me to sit by while you went public with your cure?
It was actually Morgan who caused the car accident, because he didn't want the illness cured, because he was making money from it. And to keep his profits rolling, he poisons Max's IV drip in the hospital.
Yes, the hospital. This is pretty much the big twist. The game has you wondering whether all these worlds you visit are real or not. And the answer is that none of them are, not even the asylum.
And these worlds come crashing down for a pretty awesome final chapter called the Gauntlet. Essentially, all the aesthetics and strange places you've seen throughout the game are mashed together, and Max himself is warping between his different personas. At will, you can select an item in Max's inventory to select a specific form to take. And what's great here is that each character has different physical attributes you can use to your advantage. Olmec can walk over spiky areas and weigh things down because he's made of stone and he's heavy. By comparison, Sarah is light and small, so she can crawl over thin cobwebs and get through small spaces. And Grimoire is strong and fast, so he's good for moving between areas and lifting heavy objects.
I really like how this chapter just brings everything together.
Also, you can see Max's eye warping in the background, cementing the fact that it's literally all inside his head. The basic goal of this one is to reassemble the angel from that first chapter, and doing so opens a portal to Morgan's final game. This is the big finale, and has you taking on Morgan, who now looks like this.
Really?
Look at this guy, he looks like the magic mirror from Shrek. I can't take him seriously. Oh dear. Anyway, he pits your personas against you, pretty much spelling out what parts of Max they represent.
You failed the children of the world, as you failed your sister when she needed you most. You don't have the courage to save them, nor the strength to do what's necessary. You failed everyone. As I've told you countless times before, Max, you've always been your own worst enemy.
This final puzzle is decent. An inky mirror of Max stands in your way, preventing you from reaching the parts of yourself you need to summon to win. So to do this, you have to traverse the shifting ink puzzle to stand in safe spots and reach each character to bring them back to yourself. It takes a moment to understand what you need to do, but ultimately it's pretty simple, even though you are racing against time, as represented by the poison making its way through the IV into Max's arm. I think it's now clear that we're getting closer to reality than ever before, actually catching glimpses of it now. I also really like the detail of the heads of children shifting into skulls, watching you intently. Max really does have a hero complex about this. If he dies, many more children will die from the disease he's been trying to cure.
It's almost a cathartic game to play in 2020, which I wasn't really expecting. The main villain of Sanitarium is actually corporate greed in the face of a pandemic.
Either way, taking Max's mind back from this version of Morgan enrages him. It's worth noting though that this isn't the real Morgan, just the one conjured in Max's mind, preventing him from achieving his goal. But he finds the power to break free, not just of his bonds, but also the bandages hiding himself.
There's probably some meaning behind that, but my brain is all out of ideas.
And in the real world, a comatose Max yanks the IV free before the poison gets into his system. Morgan makes his getaway, thinking he has killed his former colleague, but instead, Max embraces his wife.
I'm back. It's over.
And the credits roll over some radio news detailing what happened next. It's basically a happy ending. Max lives a good life with his wife and child, Morgan resigns and is soon arrested for his crimes. After all the horrors we saw, Max has finally touched base with reality. And life is good.
Bare feet slippers?
You need them to go on the rides, of course.
Must I pass through the bowels?
What am I listening to?
This is a confusing mess.
What?
I wish I knew, man.
Why?
That stuff is really...
Did they remix lines from the game into the credits song? Alright.
This obviously goes without saying, but Sanitarium is kind of a weird game. Not just for its content, but the way it plays and unfolds is just unusual. But it's absolutely an experience I'm glad to have had. Even if the first half is probably quite a bit stronger than the second. Above all else, it has a strong emotional core that allows you to gradually connect with Max over the course of the game. As an adventure game, it's absolutely solid. Perhaps not my favourite design-wise, but definitely not bad by any means. It's functional and rarely frustrating. Where the game shines is keeping the player guessing as to what's happening with Max. Is this real? Is that real? You constantly have theories and ideas which change and evolve throughout the experience, and it really makes it a fun playthrough. Despite being classed as psychological horror, I think it leans more into the psychological part than the horror part, you know?
It's a very unique title and one that I didn't expect to be so emotional. There's a really great story here.
So what actually did happen? For the sake of anyone confused, I think I'd like to take a moment to break down the actual plot as I understand it and explain how each part of it manifests. To begin with, Max, as a young boy, loses his sister to an unknown illness, and is unable to find a toy for her before she passes on her deathbed. The trauma from this moment pushes Max into the medical profession, researching diseases and illnesses so he can prevent more Sarahs from being lost. His training introduces him to Morgan, a man pushed to his limits to impress his father, which means he was willing to compromise ethics to get the job done. At some point, a disease begins rampaging through the children of the world, with Morgan's pharmaceutical company attempting to create a drug to deal with this. At this time, Max took his research efforts to South America to discover how the Aztecs dealt with illnesses. He was also joined here by his wife. Struggling to figure anything out, Max eventually returns to the US to work with Dr. Morgan once again, who gives Max his own funding for the drug to save these children. With Max getting closer and closer to a breakthrough, Morgan decides to cut his funding, realizing his profits would be reduced through Max's methods. Max is initially incensed by this, but talked down. Regardless, Max continues to work long hours, even neglecting his wife through his work, until the Aztec link clicks in his head and he finally figures out what he needs to do to get this drug to work. Realizing that Max is a threat to him now, Morgan cuts the brakes on Max's car, as he rushes home to tell his wife about his success, and the car veers off the road, putting Max in a coma. During this coma, Max confronts his feelings about Sarah and attains the strength and courage he needs to fight back.
Don't you just hate it when all your assassination attempt does is help your target get through their childhood trauma?
Either way, Max fights through strange worlds in his mind, realizing how Morgan wanted him dead, and feeling like the fates of all sick children in the world rested on his shoulders. and eventually Max beats his inner demons. And Morgan, who realizes his car sabotage wasn't enough, then tries to poison Max in the hospital. Max becomes lucid enough to realize this and awakens in the nick of time, ripping out the IV and is able to finish his work, with Morgan showing up as the fraud he is. So that's the story as I read it, some of which I touched upon throughout the game, other parts I didn't. There's evidence for a lot of this in the worlds we visit. For instance, one recurring theme is a woman being abandoned for her husband's work, which we see in both the circus.
He said he'd go check it out, and if it was safe, he'd come back for me. He never came back.
And in the hive.
I guess you're not in. You must be out helping Romna save the world or something.
As a matter of fact, when we first see Inferno at the circus, she is briefly portrayed in a wedding dress, which highlights her representing Max's wife, naturally. The other stuff, like Max feeling as if the lives of the children of the world rest on his shoulders, yeah, that one is more obvious. It permeates the whole thing.
Either way, it's really interesting to see how each part comes together as the story unfolds. This is a game that really benefits from more than one playthrough.
After one playthrough, I liked this game quite a bit, but replaying it for the video gave me an appreciation and understanding of the story that I never had before. It's really one worthy of its cult status. There are other games with similar ideas and concepts, but none quite as wild as Max's big brain adventure.
But either way, happy Halloween once again. This is always my favourite time of year because I get to talk about weird and spooky point and clicks. They always bring me joy. So enjoy your candy, stay healthy, and until next time, good night.
Hi there, thanks for watching another Scarfulhu Halloween special. You might have noticed that I was actually on time this year, and that's because I'm currently working on YouTube full time. This might not be permanent, but it could be with the right support. So if you're able to, please consider joining my Patreon. You get weekly updates about my progress, previews of upcoming videos, exclusive reaction videos, and more, including my eternal gratitude. If that kind of support isn't in your wheelhouse, that's okay. Sharing my video around, liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting the bell for notifications are also a great help to me. It's the support of you guys that makes this content possible. So stay tuned for more stuff like this and more Monkey Island soon. I swear the next episode of that series is on its way. I'm editing it now. Bye everybody, happy Halloween.